Why, hello there, YouTube, and welcome to this Revolting review combined. So, over the last 3 weeks, I reviewed the Fear Street series on Netflix, and they're all like one big story. So, yeah, I'm now. I reviewed them separately, but now I'm going to review them in this video in one super video. So, yes. So, I'm going to review Fear Street Part 1, 1994, Part 2, 1978, and Part 3, 1666. So, yes, first of all, welcome to a Revolting review. I am Random Ross, and today I review the Fear Street Trilogy. Fear Street, Part 1, 1994. So, Part 1. So, this is based on the book series by R.L. Stine of the same name, Fear Street. And this first feature film was directed by Lee Jankia or something. Starring Kiana Medeiros, I'm butchering the name here, Olivia Scott Welch, Benjamin Florence Jr., Julia Rainwald, Fred Hatchinger, Ashley Zuckerman, Daryl Britt Gibson, Maya Hawks, and Jordan Spirio. So this is, as I said, a feature film that's just dropped on Netflix. So this is the first of 3 feature films of Fear Street. So, like I say, this is a trilogy, and this first one is set in 1994, where in a small town of Sunnyvale, a deranged killer is on the loose killing. And of course, when you think he's taken down, he comes back in true slasher fashion. Not only that, we find out that the town's had a history of these brutal murders of different killers. And also, we then find at the end, at the end of all, it's all from a witch. And one of our final girls, Sam, her blood intertwined with the burial of the witch after a prank gone wrong. And we then have this whole thing where they're after her because of her blood, and they have to find a way to stop this and stop these killers. And yeah, that's pretty much the premise of the story. I don't want to give too much away because I've just finished watching this right now on Netflix, and it's very new, so like I say, I don't want to give too much away. But let's get to my likes and dislikes. First of all, I like the slasher aspect in this. I'm a huge slasher fan, and I like that stuff. I also liked that it was set in the 90s. It had good 90s callback, and the soundtrack as well was great in 90s, and the visual effects, practical and digital, were great. And I very much enjoyed this one. It was about 107 minutes long, and it feels like a slasher film, and I'd say it is. And this ends where it's to be continued, and part 2, I believe, is going to be called 1978, where we look back further in time, but that's all to come next week. So yes, Fear Street Part 2 will be out next week. So yeah, I like this one. I liked our protagonist in this and our final girl. I liked some of the kills as well, despite how brutal they were, and the gore and the blood. I also like that this was all like adult effects. Now, I've not really read the Fear Street books. I read some of the Goosebumps books, but the Fear Street books I've not read, so I wasn't fully familiar with this, so I kind of went into this blind. I didn't really bother with the trailers much, but I'm glad I watched this. I am glad I watched this. I don't know if R.L. Stine wrote these books aimed at teenagers or something. Let me know down in the comments below if he did, because I know that Goosebumps is child-friendly horror, and R.L. Stine is known as the Stephen King of children's literature. But I surprisingly like this one. Like I say, I am a slasher. I do love slasher films. I'm a slasher fan. and I did like this one. Of course, I didn't like how predictable it was, how cliched it was. Yeah, with this being a slasher, it's going to have its typical cheesy cliches, and I was expecting that anyway. But yeah, I very much enjoyed this first part, and I'm looking forward to seeing part 2, which drops on the 9th, which is a week today. So yeah, do I recommend this one? Yeah, I'd say check it out. You could either watch the films week by week, or you could watch it all in one big go, like a trilogy, because I said this is a trilogy. So yeah, Fear Street, Part 1, 1994. What am I going to rate this? You know what, I'll give it 3.5 machetes out of 5 for this one. 3.5 machetes out of 5. No, do you know what? I'm going to change that. I'll give it 4 machetes out of 5. 4 machetes out of 5 for Fear Street Part 1, 1994. Part 2, 1978. So this is the second part of the Netflix Fear Street trilogy, based on the work by R.L. Stine, and this one was directed by Lee Jenke or something, and it starred Sadie Skin, Emily Rudd, Ryan Simpkins, McCade Sly, Ted Sutherland, Jordana Spyro, Gillian Jacobs, Kiana Mada. Okay. So this is a continuation of last week's Fear Street. So if you haven't seen my part 1 review, it's either linked at the end of this video or in the cards above here. Anyways, yes. So the kids from the previous part, 1994, go to a woman who had the same dilemma with this curse in Sunnyvale, and she then tells them her story from 1978 in a summer camp, and it's all presented as a flashback. And then of course it ends where we go back to 1994, and one of our main protagonists touches what's the remains of the witch's hand, because she cuts her hand off in exchange for eternal life with the devil, and it pretty much ends where part 3 is going to begin, where we go to 1666. Okay, enough with the story. Let's get to my likes and dislikes. First of all, I love camp slashers like Friday the 13th, Sleepaway Camp, The Burning, and this paid homage to those particular types of slashers, mainly Friday the 13th and The Burning. This one, we see the main killer in this one is Baghead, or the Baghead Killer, and he's on a rampage of killing, and pretty much like the first one, like I said, where it all involves blood with our final girl, she does the similar thing what she did. And yeah, so I liked some of the kills in this and the gore. This one was a lot more hardcore with the sexiness. There's quite a couple of sexual scenes in there that we didn't get. This one was a lot more, I wouldn't say tamer than part 1, but definitely a lot more steamier. A lot more, like I say, hardcore than the first one. And yeah, we got a good soundtrack from 70s songs, and including, The Man Who Sold the World. Yeah. And we also got to see, we also got some good settings in there, like Camp Nightwing. So yeah, now for my dislikes, because I do have negatives to say. This one, I think I don't think it was as brilliant as the first movie. There were a lot of cliches in there, like we do with these kind of films, but yeah. Also, I thought some of the cinematography in this was a bit dark as well, and there were a few moments in there where it was a bit boring for me, but it was an okay second part of this trilogy. So yeah, It had good visual effects, but I think sometimes bits of it were pretty dark. But anyway, am I looking forward to part 3, the final part of this trilogy next week? Yes, and I will be reviewing that straight after watching it too. So my ratings, what am I going to rate this one? So, Fear Street, Part 2, 1978, I think I'll give this... I'll give it 3 machetes out of 5. No, 3.5 machetes out of 5 for this one. So 3.5 machetes out of 5 for this one, as I've just said already. Fear Street, Part 3, 1666. So, this is the third and final part of the Fear Street trilogy on Netflix, and this one was directed by Lee Jin-Kiao, whatever it says, and stars Kirsta Madiri or something, Ashley Zuckerman, and Gillian Jacobs. So, as I've said, this is the third part of the trilogy based on R.L. Stine's book series of the same name, where this time we go back even further to 1666, where the curse began, where we find out the whole origins of Seraphia and how she got the curse, or how she made the curse. So we find that out in a huge portion of the film, and then after all is explained, which I'll not give much away here, we then go back to 1994 for the final hour of the film, where they all come together, the kids from the first ones that survive, to undo this curse, as we find out that this witch, Seraphia, may not be the witch, the evilest witch that they first fought, because there's a big twist in there. So, what did I like about this one? Well, first of all, I like that we got loose ends tied, and we found out what was what and what was happening, and we got to see the finale of it. I also liked how all the actors from the previous 2 parts were recast in different roles for the 1666 segments, and how we see that. And during that whole part, it's not like a slasher film, it's like a witch trial film. And then we go back to the whole slasher part for the final part of the film. But yeah, I liked it. Was it as good as the other 2? I would probably say it's the weakest of the 3, but still good and still enjoyable and still watchable, and I did enjoy this one. Of course, some dislikes I have were that there were a lot of whole witch superstition and everything which you get in them kind of films, but witch movies aren't my strongest subgenre, but I'll watch one anyway. I also enjoyed the 90s soundtrack we still got for the 1994 Part 2, because the final hour of this part is called 1994 Part 2, because we go back to 1994. But yeah, I liked how it all concluded, how we found out who the real perpetrator was, and the whole story ending there, because it all wraps up nicely. And yeah, will there be any more of these? Well, I will say keep watching during the credits, because they do show some stuff which kind of set things in motion. Now, I hope they could do another series of this, make another trilogy of short films. Well, not short films, feature films. 3 feature films, like, they could do it every year, like a new trilogy, like Black Mirror, in a way. They can kind of do that, I think. And like if they did it next year or something, I wouldn't mind that, because to my knowledge, there is more Fear Street stories than just this storyline, because the whole thing's an anthology series like Goosebumps, only aimed at teenagers. I also like that this was real gory. They had a lot of gore in this, and a lot of raunchy stuff, like just like a whole hand decapitation scene. Yeah, this is an alright, well, this is a fun watch, and yeah, I'd say that this is a nice trilogy, well done. So yeah, I recommend it, Andy, and I'm sure you've been watching my Fear Street reviews over the last 3 weeks. Anyway, my ratings, I'll give Fear Street Part 3, 1666. I'll give it 4 machetes out of 5. 4 machetes out of 5 for Fear Street Part 3, 1666. So, have you seen this one? Let me know down in the comments below if you have. If you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Share with your friends, and if you want and you're new here, feel free to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and to hit that notification bell. All my social media links are down below in the description. So yeah, until next time, don't have nightmares.